Welcome, everybody. Melody LeBaron here with another Agents of Transformation interview. And this is the first time that I have done a second interview with the same person. And so some of you will recognize Mary Lane. And for those of you who don't, Mary Lane is my dear friend, and she is an elder who has walked an archetypal journey through the remembering and the integration of the feminine principle. She has distilled the wisdom from her lifelong experience, her deep connection with the natural world, with spirit allies, and her pivotal trainings that have supported her to translate and articulate the sacred language of our mother. For many years, she held circles for women and now prefers to one-to-one support so that she can meet each woman on their own unique journey, while honoring also the season of her life, as well as support through courses. And we are going to be talking about her upcoming course, which I am really looking forward to, called Restoring Sacred Reciprocity of Life and Death. She is the author of Divine Nourishment, A Woman's Sacred Journey with Food, Mina, the fiery story of a heroine's initiation, reclaiming her authentic sexual nature and relationship with the Great Mother, both of these books are amazing and wonderful. But I'm really excited to talk to Mary today about her newest book, Plant Medicine for End of Life Care, welcoming the wisdom of plants to support conscious living and dying. And all three of these books are available on Amazon. So, Mary, welcome. I'm so
Oh,
excited you're here.
thank you, Melody. Thank you for this opportunity to talk story with you and to share.
And I really want to start. Both of your first two books are amazing, but as soon as you sent out the email a few weeks ago for this one, I was ordering it, and it's even more beautiful than, I mean, it's just got these beautiful color images, and I think you took many of them that are stunning. And I would love to dive into what does it mean for you to have finally published this work and to be finally teaching this course coming up.
Oh, well, okay. First of all, I took all the pictures, even the cover photo. So every one of the pictures in the book are mine, which is I'm really happy to have that as part of the beauty and the magic of the book. I'll start with the book. I didn't actually know I was going to write that book. The same as with the other two books, something just came through and said, this book needs to be written. And I was in a time over the last year, about a year long period where I was going inward and really dropping deeper into um, what was calling me in this season of my life. And another death and rebirth. Let's just, say it what it is. And during that cycle, this just took over, and it wasn't about putting stuff out as an herbalist. It wasn't putting stuff out as a death doula. For me, it is, and it always has been. It's about bringing the divine intelligence of Mother Nature into our walk with death, just like I did into our walk with the divine feminine, with sexuality, with food. Everything that I've done over my adult life has been, and whatever phase of life I've been in, it's been bringing it through that lens, that that what I experience as the divine intelligence of the natural world. So this is what, and it's like, I got to write this book. So while I was inward, it's like, okay, let's write this book. And that's what came through. And I know it looks like a little simple little handbook. These are some herbs you can use. These are some plant spirit essences, some aromatherapy, some homeopathy. This is how you can make it. This is where you can buy it. This is, you know, the whole journey with having a simple apothecary for what is looked at as end of life care. But for me, it's much, much more of what actually funnels into that simple presentation. And it's not just for end of life care, it is for all the deaths and rebirths that we go through throughout life, that actually, with the support of the intelligence of the natural world through the plant medicine, has a huge effect on our final transition. So, yeah, that's what it is for me to offer this book.
And I just want to uh, offer my gratitude because I was only familiar with using essential oils for these kinds of transitions that we're talking about. I didn't even know about essential oils until 1997. And during that summer, my son Logan was in an accident, and 3 days later died in our arms. So I drove to Vanderbilt Hospital, thinking that I was going to be there for a long time, helping him recover. And later that week, I buried him.
Mm,
And when I got home, I was just in a state of shock. And a very dear friend who had just learned about essential oils brought me a bottle of an essential oil for grounding that I used on my feet to ground myself every day, and an essential oil blend for grief, which I
mm,
used on my crown, on my brow, here and here. And it helped. It made such a big difference. So I started studying the use of essential oils and use them all the time, but especially those two for, as you say, the death of an old identity. When we go through that death and rebirth process, when something big in our lives is changing. But I didn't have a reference point for how to use herbs and plant medicine for these transitions. And so I'm really excited and grateful to have this. And if there's anyone that I would want to learn how to use plant medicine from, it's you. Um, what I wanted to share with our with our listeners and viewers is that I am blessed to live in the same community with you, and just once a month we go foraging. And yesterday we were out. I had the most delicious salad last night
oh,
of wild greens, and I am learning so much about these. I have a new relationship, not just with the herbs that we're gathering, but with all food because of our work together.
mm. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Yeah, I'm serving my wild salad tonight at dinner. But, one of the things I wanted to add is that, what you're sharing is that one of the reasons why it is so, for me, so important to be using plant medicine. And when I say plant medicine, I'm covering in all its, the plethora of forms that it can come in. Um, is that we're really dealing with death, rebirth, death, rebirth. It doesn't matter when. And the plants hold that consciousness because they are in sacred reciprocity. They are in that whole realm that sacred reciprocity is the foundation in which the divine love flows through the natural world. So the contrast between using a plant that holds that consciousness as an ally to support you to go through this doesn't matter if it's death of an identity, death of relationship, or death of our body. It actually is infusing you with this consciousness. Consider the contrast between that and a pharmaceutical that is designed to numb everything out. So you're not really fully experiencing the sacredness of the journey. And so it's like even when we're out foraging for our wild salads, we do it from that perspective, which is, bringing us closer into that divine relationship, which I feel like is so important, and why I keep bringing it into all these different arenas in our lives.
Yeah. You know, I am not someone, and perhaps many of our listeners and viewers are the same. I'm not someone who I'm wired in a way that makes me very sensitive, including to supplements, to medications. So I don't reach for, pharmaceuticals when
Right.
I'm ill. I reach for other ways of restoring my body's ability to heal itself. Now, that doesn't mean I've never taken pharmaceuticals, but it means that's not what I reach for first. And I am much more likely to use herbs and supplements and body work because I have a deep reverence for the healing wisdom that is innate in the body. And from you, I am learning how to incorporate the consciousness, the divine blueprint, the wisdom, the intelligence in these plant allies in my food and in my medicine. And
Yeah.
I believe this is ancient wisdom. I believe that before the Inquisition, the quote, witches, the wise women, the herbalists, the midwives, we all had this ancient wisdom. And then that body of memory was impinged and maybe even for a time shut down.
Yeah.
But before pharmaceutical companies, we managed to keep ourselves healthy and well using
That's
our
yeah.
allies.
That's all we had. And, I've been making my own herbal medicine for 30 years. And in that 30 years, I've used antibiotics once when I got a staph infection. I've never had to use antibiotics or pharmaceuticals for anything else. The plants have always, in some form or another, served what I needed. But there's another piece here that I think is really important, that, a lot of the suffering is caused by feeling separate and feeling separate from the divine here on planet Earth, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all a million times. But when you think about it, if you are putting something in your body and it is infused in your body, it's also going to be infused in your consciousness. And so, in bringing this into your life in this way, it doesn't just heal the body; it heals our consciousness from feeling separate. Because how could we feel separate when our physical body is made up of what we're putting into our bodies, and this is the consciousness we're putting into our bodies, it repairs our relationship with Mother Earth as a divine um, as divine intelligence in form, and the plants are ways of infusing us. And so it's like I'm carrying all of this while I'm writing this simple little book, and it looks like, oh, okay, this is what I use for this, and this is, but I'm kind of sitting back here going, all of this is being funneled because of my life's work, my life's pathway, so and it's nice to be able to kind of give a little peek into, this isn't just a simple little handbook, this is way more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it honestly, you mentioned the kind of feeling of separation that
Right.
so many of us in Western culture have. And I want to share my perspective on a disturbing to me trend that I am seeing because 1990 was the first time that I cared for someone who was dying. And since then, I now have 14 of my closest loved ones that have passed through the portal of death and in my care. And then I don't know how many clients um, and other beloveds that I've supported. Back in the 1990s and even the early 2000s, if you were to die in the care of a hospice, you were more likely to have a connected, more holistic experience than you are likely to have today.
Mm,
And I have seen this very disturbing trend where more and more hospice facilities are over medicating our dying loved ones,
mhm,
and they are not dying in what I would, a way that I would want to die. They are not dying in a way that allows them to have what I call a conscious death. And maybe that's the way some people would want to go. That is not the way I want to go after having witnessed so many conscious deaths. I want to have what I consider a conscious death. So can we talk about the, maybe the difference in paradigms?
well, what comes up for me in your sharing is that we have, in the old paradigm, we have learned to fear death because of that sense of separation. When you are connected to that, like I said, the sacred reciprocity that is always in motion in the natural world, and you are supported by that intelligence because you're aware of it. And then you also include the plants as support. Every time you go through the death of, fill in the blank, it doesn't matter if it's, a phase of life, it's if it's the death of anything. The only way we grow is the death of the old and birth of the new. So here you are, knowing that this is the natural order for evolution. This is the plants are supporting you. And if you do this throughout your life, you will always, that always without fail, there is rebirth after death, or actually simultaneous with death of the old. So what I see that doing is, in that lifestyle, it eliminates the fear of death. And so, to speak to what you're talking about, if we have not been walking in this way, and we are still plugged into the old paradigm that death is something to fear, and it's an entity all of its own at the end of life and has nothing to do with walking through life, then it's going to be natural for people to want to be medicated so they don't have to experience what they're in terror of, in fear of. But what I'm saying is that no, we experience death and rebirth, death and rebirth, death and rebirth all through life. And the natural world is the intelligence of that in form. And so that's why I turn to the plants, to Mother Earth. Show me, teach me. And she is showing me how to die and die to the old and birth the new, which is, I, since I started on that path, my soul's evolution, over time, I feel escalated because I'm on board with it.
Yeah.
And when I feel like something is ready to go, something is ready to die, I don't grip, I don't resist, I don't hang on because I'm afraid of the unknown. You know, I go and I make plant spirit essences and I go, okay, let's go, and I ride the wave, and there's never not been a rebirth, just like there's never not been spring after winter. It's just woven into the divine intelligence. So why not walk with those who hold that intelligence?
Right. Right.
And I feel like that is what is why over time people have felt more and more disassociated from the natural world. And so I feel like that it adds to the trend that you're talking about, Melody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's also impacted by just the bureaucracy and all of that. But you are someone who has understood from your training with Elliot Cowan all the way, uh, even before that, where
Yeah.
you have unplugged from the sad American diet. You've been eating healthy. You've been eating in a conscious way, and so who would I rather learn more from about this transition of preparing for um, what our culture calls the end of life, right? And so I want us to talk more because, um, uh, you know, in a week, the course is starting that I've been waiting for so long, Restoring Sacred Reciprocity of Life and Death. What a title. And, talk to us about how this came to you and what will be included in this 6-week course.
Well, how this came to me, you wouldn't believe me if I did tell you. So it's so trust. It just, all I can say is that it came as a culmination of my life's path. It is not something that just was a good idea and oh, let's throw this out there. It really was like it ripened over time, where all these other pieces had to be integrated before I could even conceive of what this is, the sacred reciprocity of life and death. But once again, it's going back to through the lens of the natural world, where the life and death cycles is sacred reciprocity, and it's always for the good of the whole. And I've been looking at, because I've been walking with the exploration of end of life, aging. I'm 73. How do I walk this walk as consciously as possible through the lens of the natural world, who has been my teacher? And I realized, oh my God, the sacred reciprocity that I'm witnessing, that is in everything, is divine love. And it's always giving back for the good of the whole. And death always feeds life. Always, always, always. There is no life without it. It's not possible. And so I started really looking at, from as a result of being with so many people who are dying, it's like, what are they giving back? Where is the sacred reciprocity as in gratitude for this immense human experience that could not happen
Right.
without the sacred reciprocity, without the death feeding life? It's not possible. And so it's sort of like there is a split between the seen and unseen realms. There is and when people are dying in fear, I'm looking at, because of my other work, that the energy that is being moved into the collective field, does that energy feed life? It doesn't. And it's like, when we can just look at what is keeping us from being able to really embrace our death as a sacred passage, that I don't want to just die. I want my death to feed life. And as a, oh my God, thank you so much for this incredible gift of this life that I have lived, and the an immense evolution my soul has gone through. So that was sort of like, wait a minute, we're the only ones unplugged from the sacred reciprocity in death feeding life. So I realized that our relationship with food, our relationship with Mother Earth, our relationship with the feminine, who is the aspect of us that it doesn't matter if we're men or women, that is able to go in and support the death of what no longer serves. All these pieces that we've been disconnected from in a really sacred, healthy relationship with, have contributed to our fear of death. And so this program that I'm doing is like, let's go back and reweave, what's our relationship with food? What's our relationship with the feminine? What's our relationship with knowing ourselves as sacred? What's our relationship with the divine? Well, actually, with our spirit allies who are supporting us to walk through this life. What is our relationship with the divine masculine that supports us to put all of this into form and into action, that we are living it, we are embodying it? And all of these pieces need to be woven back together so that we can give back at the time, instead of just cower in fear of the unknown. Um, that's why the course, and it has been, I feel like it's a culmination of my entire life's walk from birth until now. And I'm really excited about offering this.
Mary, it occurs to me as we are speaking. So as you were talking about that, I, kind of mentally reviewed the 14 of my closest loved ones, my son, my mother, my sister, my father, my stepmother, my dearest friends. And I realized that many of those deaths fed life, but not all, right? Because of fear and because of maybe some trauma. And I can see that clearly, both as an energetic principle, because certainly, I lived in Nashville in the 80s, and there was this beautiful park, Radnor Lake. And as soon as a tree fell down, they would chop it all up and carry the pieces away so it wouldn't mar the beauty of life. And then soon the woods began to die. The land began to die because you didn't have the death of the old feeding the life. And so I've long understood that energetic and physical principle. But even emotionally, I have seen this where the dying person has the courage to step into a place of acceptance, giving permission and giving language even to the family members and the caregivers who get to come close.
Yeah.
And just like that mother tree falls down in the woods and gives life, and all these other trees spring up around her, feeding off her nutrients, everyone who caregives around the deathbed of someone who is dying a conscious death, they go away more mature, bigger, and stronger than they were before. And so I can understand this emotionally as well, this principle. And as you're speaking, it also occurs to me that we are living in a time of collective death and dying. Old structures and systems are coming apart. Um, the underbelly of corruption is being exposed. And we, some of us unwillingly, are being called to participate. We are being called to vote our values. We are being called to get involved in our local communities. But one of the most powerful things I believe that we can do is to say this is a collective death process, and yes, I will attend. I won't like look away and block it out. I will be one of the midwives who attends to what is dying around us so that I can also be a midwife to the sacred rebirth, to the rebirth of what will replace these old hierarchical one up, one down structures that really only serve the people in the one up position. And so, I realize your course is meant to help us with the end of life as it relates to individual identities and as it relates to the physical end of this mortality. And I also think this material can prepare us to, as my teacher Joanna Macy said, be a good midwife for the death of the old world as we are midwifing the birth of the new one.
Absolutely, Melody. Because when you think about it, and what we will be addressing in this course is the fractals. So, we are going through a death of the old and birth of the new on the collective. And how the collective is doing it is how it is done everybody on the personal level, because that feeds the collective. So, how everyone is going through this death of the old paradigm and birth of the new is fed by how everybody is doing their personal journey of the death of the old paradigm within themselves. So, we are in a really, in a big fractal, it's the death of a paradigm. In the smaller fractal, it's all the deaths that we are going through and birthing um, of the old paradigm into the new paradigm on an individual level. You can't separate it out.
Yeah.
And so, why I'm addressing end of life death is that fear is affecting how we are able to walk through the death of the old paradigm. And you're right, we are midwifing ourselves. I feel like if I was to label myself, a death doula, of transitioning from the old paradigm to the new paradigm in relationship to the food, the sexuality, the Mother Earth, the feminine, and now death. And so this is, for me, we had this conversation at the river the other day of this is happening like it or not. How do you want to show up for this is really gonna affect how you show up for your the last transition out of your physical experience, out of your physical incarnation, out of your physical body. So I would like to invite everybody, are you paying attention to how you are navigating your way through the death of this old paradigm? Are you looking away? Are you pretending it's not happening? Are you trying to, you know, avoid it? And if you are, then how is that affecting your transition on a personal level?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Mary, these are times when we must take heart. We must have courage. And I just can't think of a better resource for all of us with what we are facing in the collective and in our own individual lives than your course, Restoring Sacred Reciprocity of Life and Death. And I'm so grateful for the time that it took and for all these beautiful photos. You know, when you and I are walking in the woods, I see this beautiful blanket carpet of green that I have always loved, you know, especially in the spring. But walking with you, because of that, I am able to recognize, oh, you are my ally for, you know, you are my ally for um, doing the kind of the spring detox in my body you're the dandelion, you are the mugwort, you are the violet leaves, you know, and so because of your teachings and for those of you who won't be able to walk with Mary, but just read the book, the photographs will show you which ones of these beautiful uh, plants are the allies in our process. So I couldn't be more grateful for this new work that you brought forth.
Oh, thank you, Melody. Thank you. Yes, we are walking with very conscious, sentient beings that we need to recognize and with divine intelligence. And I guess that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Thank you so much.